Until on one, I got to remember my process at that time was pretty simplistic. I found that the easiest way for me to phase out and be in this OB state was at 3 o'clock in the morning, go through a couple sleep cycles, and then I'm awake, I'm rested, and I'm totally relaxed. It's absurdly easy, and will be for you if you want to play in that field, is simply to roll out of this. It's so simple, you'd be surprised. Go to 21 and you're there. It's so simple. And it's at 3 o'clock in the morning. Everything's quiet, the phone's not going to ring, all sorts of excuses. No cats on the bed, you know, all sorts of stuff. So, what had happened was that historically, many years prior, probably about 5 years after I started getting into the out-of-body state, I had in turn gotten into a frustrated point that I didn't know what to do with this. I had no idea what to do with it. So what, in desperation on one of those 3 o'clock in the morning states, I rolled out and said, I don't know what to do next. How many times can I go to the West Coast on a test? How many times can I go pinch people? You know, all these kind of things. And so I said, total self, you take over. And I'm not knowing, I didn't like the word soul, so I used that to cover whatever it might be. And with this beautiful certainty, wham, all of us, the whole other patterns of this operation in this state of being opened up to me from that moment on. And merrily I went on the way, letting every time this total self do the driving and do the navigating. All I did is just go along, as it were. And so that had been going on for years and years and years. So back up to recent time, one particular meeting with this inspect, and we are having a normal conversation, normal communication, as it were, and all of a sudden she said, I'm sorry, Mr. Monro, but this is our last meeting. And I got this great shock. What? And he says, this is the last time we can meet. And I said, well, what did I do? Did I do something wrong? No, he said, you are just moving in a direction that you need to move, and this will not serve that purpose. And I was totally bewildered and shocked. And I said, well, will we ever see each other again? So he says, yes, but not in this form. Wink, gone. Winked out. And he was disappeared. And talk about shock. I thought, what had done wrong? What was happening? So she had said one small thing in a previous, that the basics were important, and that was the phrase, basics were important. And in thinking days and months after this cutoff, what it was, I remembered the phrase, and I thought, basics, what basic thing had I missed? What basics? And in going around the circle, then suddenly this big aha opened up, and it took a long time to get to it, and that was about 4 years ago. This big aha. And I said, you know, I have been riding around in this total self vehicle all these years, and I've never looked under the hood. You understand what I mean? I don't know who's doing the driving. I don't know who's doing the navigating. And I've been happily doing it. So I decided to do that, is to look under the hood of this I. And I give this to you tonight because I think it's so important. May I drink my coffee? Why is this important? Because you're in 21, and this is the opportunity for you to play. We all like the tendency to move outward and perceive externals. One of the key things tonight, that I think you can do is know yourself first. Because that's what I had to do in going back and looking under the hood, as it were, of what I am. Now, I can tell you what I found. First of all, instead of in 21 enrolling this way, and put it in, it's a crude way, but it's the best I can do. I rolled this way, inside, and moved inward, and it took weeks and months to get this piece by piece knowledge, information, or whatever. But what I began to find, first of all, was a catalog being continually updated on every possible part of me, of my experience, my emotions, my activities, whatever. It was a memory bank, if you want to put it that way, a life history recording of me. And you could go up and down that whole life history and back to when you were a 2-year-old, and the stupid things that you had curiousness of. And I give you a little, I have to be intimate with you because I can't do it any other way. For example, I had always wondered why I was hiding in the bushes as about a 2-year-old or 3-year-old at my grandmother's house. So I went down the line to find out what really happened, and it was very amusing. I didn't want to go in the house because I had a faces in my pants. Stupid, but it's these kinds of things you can find out about yourself up and down that thing, and you can find all the stupid things and all the brilliant things you did in your life up to date. And there it is, and it's constantly being added to. It's as if, another way of putting it is as if we are all operating a computer workstation here, if you can think of it that way. And that's a mainframe, and you're feeding the mainframe with all this data, and you're offloading it over here into what might be called short-term memory or whatever, but that's all the permanent feed up there. And it's anything that you know or think you are or hide from, it's all there, it's all open, but it's you look at it, it's so clean and so beautifully organized that it's fun to get to know the real parts of you by hitting that mainframe that is a part of that whole thing of you. This is all you. This is the points. Not anywhere else, not in some wild universe. This is you. Moving inward to that, another layer, which is a busy place, as it were, and I watched with great amusement that it is an emotional layer, and this is a layer of all the emotions you're constantly accumulating, and there's a mechanism that's shoveling them off somewhere, like this, joint, joint, joint. It's like a conveyor belt that's throwing it out this way while your life is dumping it in here. It's very interesting. And I found out later, of course, that's the way it looks, but it's actually sorting it out and classifying the different types of emotion. So then moving, and it took a long time to get past these fascinating things. And then there is this intellectual level, layer, and getting into that, and that was a lot of familiar things, but there again, it was knowledge that I had no knowledge I had that information, which is fascinating. And totally, and I spent weeks and months in there. It's, again, like a system of cataloging. And beyond that is where I really found there was like a barrier there, and like a wall. And the wall had been pierced, and I later found out how and why, but it was as if there was a form, a crack in this wall, a hole, where it was humanoid in shape, and the shape of me, my physical self. It was very funny. There's a long story about how that happened, but that's another part of it. And that, I suddenly, one afternoon, had the courage to go in, and what did I find? It was astounding.